Welcome to Wichita Paramotor Coast to Coast, where we discuss paramotor stuff with paramotor people about paramotor things. Coming to you from Wichita, Kansas, the air capital of the world. Join us now with your host, Leo Kiesling, paramotor instructor and fanatic.
All right, here we go, people. So this is the first ever episode of Wichita Paramotor Coast to Coast. And so we're on a beautiful Sunday, Easter, Wichita, Kansas, 2025. So, I mean, you know, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. And like I said, we talk about paramotor stuff with paramotor people over paramotor things, right?
Indeed.
So today I have Mike with me. Mike Isbell has recently started flying a paramotor. And, you know, I've really enjoyed hanging out with Mike, and he's got quite a story to tell. You're kind of a master for words. You seem to be able to put stuff in a pretty linguistic fashion.
Sure, he talks. It's getting him to shut up that's the problem.
So, Mike, tell me a little bit about yourself. You're living here in Wichita, Kansas.
Yep. I retired from the Air Force 21 years ago and relocated back to Wichita because we had been stationed here at McConnell. And it turned out it was a great place to raise a family, so that's what I did. When I retired, I became a house dad.
So you're originally from Wichita, born and raised?
No, born and raised, born in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh boy.
Moved to Wyoming near Devil's Tower for my senior year in high school with the family.
Okay.
And from there, I went off to school and then joined the Air Force and went all over the place and got stationed at McConnell for one of my duty stations and came back to it.
Nice. So I will tell everybody, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, we are live on Facebook. So I've actually got a little phone set up here so I can see if anybody's got anything good to talk about or any questions for you.
Sure.
So, you got out of the Air Force, or you went into the Air Force. You did how many years?
20 years.
20 years.
2 months, 3 days, but who's counting?
What did you actually do in the Air Force?
Everything but fly.
Oh no.
Everything but fly. I was enlisted first, became a guidance and control technician, so I was a Sparky. But being of my short stature, my first duty location was at Travis Air Force Base with C-5s and 141s. There's a lot of really small spaces in those planes where you have to do work.
Okay.
Yeah, I got stuck into a lot of really small spaces.
And like overall, did you enjoy the Air Force?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If I could do it over again, I'd probably do it better because I learned so much about what it's like to be in the Air Force. However, I may end up, if I had to do it over, I might do the Coast Guard because there's a little story to me going into the Air Force.
Okay, tell us that story.
Well, I'm in Casper, Wyoming, going to a junior college there. It's midwinter and Casper is cold and windy as hell, and I'm working at a gas station and reading a newspaper, looking out, seeing all the snow, and looking at an advertisement that says, join the Coast Guard. So I contacted a recruiter in Casper, Wyoming. You're about as landlocked as you can be.
Right.
And I wanted to just get out of there. So I said, yeah, boats, okay, let's go. Went down to the MEP Center, took testing and the ASVAB and the like. But on the time that we were down there, it was a 2-day event. First day, you're getting poked and prodded in all different places for your physical. Comes lunchtime, and we get into this big foyer area, and there was an Air Force staff sergeant at a desk, and he was calling out the names to everybody, come up and get your box lunch. He got through the whole list, didn't call my name. I walk up to him and give him my name, and he says, well, you're not on my list. But you're here. Yes. Are you here for the Coast Guard? And I said, yes, I am. He says, well, that's Department of Treasury. You have to find your recruiter, and he'll get you some lunch. I went over to the recruiter's office, Richard Thetford, I'll remember his name, and he had gone to lunch, and I was his only recruit down there that day. He left.
Oh, no.
So I went back to that staff sergeant at the desk, and I said, look, you get me a box lunch, and I'll enlist in the Air Force. And he immediately was like, here you go, have this. And then when you're done, go into this office. So I went in to see the Air Force recruiter there. And they pulled up my ASVAB scores, and they said, well, it says here, you could qualify for just about any job you want. I said, well, I want to be a paramedic because I've taken EMT classes. He gave me the first inappropriate response was, we don't have those in the Air Force. Okay, don't have paramedics. So they said, well, what would you like to do? You can do just about anything that you want, and we really would like to have an electronic technician. So at that point, I had a full belly. I was ready to go somewhere, so okay, sign me up. What do I have to do? So I got recruited into the Air Force after being stolen from the Coast Guard.
So you literally...
Over a box lunch, literally.
So, over a sandwich, you ended up from the Coast Guard
Yep.
into the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I remember you telling me something about how you were training people to make bombs.
Well, that was later on in my career because being prior enlisted, I knew I wanted to continue my education and I wanted to try to become an officer. So during my first tour or first enlistment, I completed my degree and got accepted, went to OTS, Officer Training School. Coming out of Officer Training School, I went into munitions. Because I was a mechanic, so why not make me in charge of special weapons? Okay, so I'm in munitions. Then they do a logistics cross-flow thing, so I then did some time as a supply officer. And that was here at McConnell. And then after that, I went overseas and I was involved in conventional munitions at headquarters U-Safety.
Okay.
But I also had a tour at Beale Air Force Base where they ran a special school called AFCOMAC, Air Force Combat Ammunition Center. And that's where we taught our enlisted personnel not just how to build bombs, but how to build a lot of bombs. Like you're actually trying to meet a fragmentary order, not just one, hundreds, and these were live weapons.
So it was more of a production scenario.
Oh yes, absolutely. Now, since I was the maintenance officer at that squadron, I also taught a senior officer orientation course, and yes, we had, most often it was 06 and above, or GM 13s and 15s, and they came out to see what it was like to build a whole bunch of bombs, and we incorporated them onto the pads as helpers.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't in charge of anything, they were just grunt labor helpers. So that was a very interesting time.
Gotcha.
Teaching the senior officers what it means to build all this stuff.
That sounds absolutely crazy. And were you nervous that you'd make the wrong move and blow everything up?
Well, no, we had some safety protocols.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Were you worried somebody else would make the wrong move and blow everything up?
No, no. Safety protocols were good. Now, as a young lieutenant, I went through the AFCOMAC course.
Okay.
And I was out on the pad carrying some fuses, and these are live fuses. The fuses were live, the bomb bodies are live, the booster assemblies for the explosive chain, those were inert, so you could never get a high order explosion. It just couldn't happen. But I had a box of fuses, and they were live, and I'm carrying them across the pad to deliver to the assembly table. Yeah, I dropped them.
Oh no.
Oh yes, and they're live, and they have a drop height. And the pad dad, a master sergeant, was called over, and he looks at me and he says, not tall enough, he didn't exceed drop height. Use them.
So, all right, so we'll kind of go into that. So you're only 5'3". 5'3".
Yeah,
You're
3.5 when I wake up in the morning.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. So you're 140 pounds?
130.
130
Yeah.
pounds, okay. So you're a small guy.
Indeed.
And, thinking about throughout your life, did that benefit you, or were you one of those that was always trying to put on elevator shoes?
No, I was always as big as I needed to be in the eyes of those around me.
Oh, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I've had really large ammo guys when I was in charge of the conventional munitions branch at Ramstein. One senior master sergeant was in, and he was venting about something or other going on in his life, and just having a vent session in front of my desk. And I stood up and I said, well now, and I won't say his name, that sounds like a personal problem. I'm not going to fix it for you. And he just looked at me and says, you know, sir, I never knew you were so short. I said, look, do I have to be taller because this little brass on my shoulder will allow me to be?
Right. I don't know if it was short in conversation or short in stature, but that was beautiful. So, have you got kids?
I have lots of kids. I have a total of 6 kids.
Oh my.
Yes. The Air Force has been very, very good to me, but not so very good to my ex-wives.
Gotcha.
I've collected
Gotcha.
a few. However, first wife had 2 children, a young man and a young lady. We got divorced. I got sent back overseas. We don't see too much of each other. But my son, my oldest son, he went into the Navy, and my daughter from that marriage, she went into the Air Force as a Farsi interpreter. That ended in divorce, but then I got married again and had 4 children. And these were the children that was still a very young family when I retired, so that became my retirement job, is raising kids.
Gotcha.
Well, it's been 21 years, and those kids have all grown up, and my older son from that group, he went into the Navy. The 2 middle sons, they both attended college, did some ROTC, and the second oldest, he's now in the Space Force.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And my daughter, my youngest
No
daughter.
jokes. No jokes about Space Force.
Yep. My youngest daughter has decided she doesn't want to do military service. She wants to be a doctor. I said, oh, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good income.
There's my health care plan.
Right. She'll take care of you. Get old and senile, and your daughter will help you be
And
comfortable while you're old and senile.
hopefully that doesn't happen for a while.
Right.
Now my oldest son from the second group, Corbin, he's going to be coming out here this summer, and he's going to learn to fly through you. Paramotor.
Beautiful.
Indeed.
I'm excited.
So am I.
A couple of times that I've met Corbin, great attitude, great kid.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I can really call him a kid. How old is he?
27.
27. He's really well put together. He's smart, well-rounded, seems to be,
Mhm.
and I think he's going to have a lot of fun. And
Oh, yeah.
What I'm looking forward to seeing is you guys flying together.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty cool. So, Now we're, talking about that flying thing. So, tell me, give me a little bit about how you got interested in paramotor, and moreover, how did you get interested in aviation alone past the Air Force? When did you know that you personally wanted to fly?
Well, I bought a Kit Fox, which is a Part 103 ultralight. Had it stored in my garage for about 2 years because I was always going to learn to fly. It turns out that I took some flying lessons, and that wasn't the greatest for me, so I sold that Kit Fox. Hadn't really had a thought about flying after that, but this last October, on my birthday, I brought Corbin and my other son Julian out to your field for an introduction because I had seen, I'd done some research. I wanted to see what it was like, and got a hold of you and your name and called you up. You said, yeah, come out and see us. And man, you gave such a fabulous orientation, way beyond what I had expected. You put me under a kite, you put Corbin under a kite, you put Julian under a kite. It was just amazing, the feeling of bringing that wing up and getting that inflation, pulling that behind you, and watching two of my sons do the same thing. And the amount of energy and time that you took on a free orientation. At that point, I was like, this community, I like this. I like this guy, I like this event, and after that, it's, I'm going full force. I'm going to do this.
So how did you originally find Paramotor? Was it a video? Was it somebody you talked to? How did Paramotor come into your life, past, coming out to the field and hanging out with me? How did you literally discover Paramotor?
I was aware of Paramotor, but never seen anything in person. And just because of my interest in aviation and, checking out FAR Part 103 ultralight and finding out what different styles of aircraft and air machines were available for that. But my first interest was in a fixed wing aircraft. I bought one, figured I'd give that a shot. That didn't work out, but I was aware of paramotor and, parachuting. I didn't want to do parachuting. That's a one-way trip. You go from the airplane down to the ground.
Yeah.
Kind of not so interesting.
Yeah, I've never understood the concept of jumping out of a perfectly good aircraft.
Yeah. Well, you notice I'm wearing an airborne, this is an actual Eisenhower jacket.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is not mine. My stepfather, who passed away last June, this was his. This is an actual, this jacket's older than me.
Wow.
And he jumped out of planes.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
I would never do such a thing because my job was to fix the planes and make them flyable and, by God, stay in them until they land, and unless they're falling apart, then jump out.
Right. Get some more cataclysmic happening before you leave the aircraft.
Exactly. But to say an event got me started in paramotor, not really. It was an awareness that just at the right time it became available to me. So called you up, went out there, found out what it was about, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Okay. So, let's talk about your process real quick. So, you come out, you hang out with me, I run you through a bunch of equipment, we put motors on your back, we put wings above your head, we stuck you in the simulators, everything like that. So now you're a go. You're okay, I'm gonna go fly. So we started with the kiting process.
Yes.
And you came out for one of my 10-day courses.
Yes.
10 days, sun up, sundown. It's pretty intense, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it was. But I had the capability to enjoy it all because I'm retired. And my kids were all grown up and on their own. So it really became part of my life. That was what I did. And then when we weren't out there at the field doing ground school or kiting and stuff for weather or whatever reason, I'm back at the house watching all kinds of videos.
Right.
That was pretty much all I ever watched was the Tucker Gott and Trevor Steele and
All the good boys.
All the good boys, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. The celebs in the business.
Yep.
So you started kiting. Was that what you had expected? Was that a process that you thought you were going to actually be intuitive to, or how did that work for you?
It was not intuitive, And you remember, I fought it all the time. And there's no way a 130-pound guy is going to fight a wing like that when it's coming up into the power range. You've got to learn to dance with it. And it took a couple of days. I was getting frustrated, but I had high confidence that I was going to learn this. But yeah, that kite scared me a couple of times just because of the amount of pull and me trying to resist it. It's not that way. That's not how you control the kite. You control the kite by letting it fly, and then you guide it to where you're following it, and you can guide it to where it needs to be. So I made lots of mistakes. Oh yeah, and I got so frustrated with, why does it keep falling down to this side? Because you got to walk over that way. And yeah, okay, I understand. I need to be lining up to the wind, but man, when it starts to go to shit, it's just like, oh no, I'm tugging on it. That doesn't work.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you were talking about, at a couple of points where it actually frightened you. Tell me a little bit about getting that butt pucker with that kite.
Oh, well, doing the first forward launch, and you get that thing, you run as hard as you can, and you get that thing pulling up, and it's going through the power zone, and it's hard to move, and you're yelling, faster, faster, run faster, and I got the wing up, and I'm trying to run faster, but it's providing me lift, so only my tippy toes are touching the ground. It's hard to get any forward motion when you don't have anything on the ground except your toes. That was a little bit scary, but by far I'm more comfortable with the forward launch now. I know how to do the reverse launch in the kiting, and I have tried a reverse launch with the motor. It just didn't work because of wind conditions at the time. But when I was first learning the kiting, the reverse kiting, and you get that surge that pulls up. When you pull the A's and it starts to get breathing in the wind, and it starts to pull you forward, that scared me because I thought, this is just going to drag me all over the place. It wasn't until after listening to you, it's like, no, sit down into your harness, sit into it, and that will let the wing come up, and then it's not so scary. And it does pull you forward, but you want to pull forward under there to mitigate that pull. It took me a while to trust that it wasn't going to continue, and it wasn't going to lift me.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where you actually had to build that relationship with the wing.
Yeah, learning to dance with the wing.
And trust it, and to also trust yourself so you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
So then tell me about ground school. What was that like for you?
Well, I may have been one of your more difficult students because I like to interject and talk a lot.
No, you got good questions.
I have a lot of experience with aeronautics. That's my degree, professional aeronautics. So I didn't want to come off as a know-it-all, but I did have a lot of interesting points about the practicalities of this specific sport.
Gotcha.
And the aerodynamics of the equipment and the control functions. The biggest thing that I learned a lot is about the weather and how the weather affects you and how you can observe for local conditions. I knew about weather formations and what the clouds, which clouds were big and bad and dangerous and scary looking clouds and things like that. But to put it together as what you're seeing here, but you also have to think about what you're seeing out on the horizon and knowledge of what the weather forecasts were showing. I mean,
And what's coming.
And nowadays I'm on weather.gov every morning. Every morning I look at the wind charts, and I was disappointed this morning when I see that next 6 days, no, winds mean we're gonna fly.
It's funny how that becomes a routine.
Mhm.
You know, when you become a pilot, or I would say pilot of any aircraft or ultralight vehicle, it becomes this routine that, you know, flying is such a part of you, and that so much that you enjoy. You'll wake up, you'll check everything else, and then immediately you go to the weather charts
Yeah.
and see what's happening. Do I have a chance to fly today? Do I have a chance to fly next week? And I'll tell you honestly, it kind of becomes a religion.
Yeah.
You know, you wake up, you check it, and then you always check it before you go to bed too. Did things change throughout the day? Am I gonna have a chance? So, in ground school, what would you say is probably what was the most difficult part of it for you? Where did you have to apply yourself the most?
And still applying myself, and that is airspace and classes of airspace and how to read a sectional. What I have found out is when you're looking at a sectional, you're looking for, can I fly here?
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't mean you have to interpret everything in that whole sectional. You have to determine, where do I expect to fly? Can I fly there? But I'd like to be able to look at it and see it as a gestalt whole and say, this is where I can fly. Here's where I can fly around that airport. This is how I could go around that. These are places where I cannot launch from. This is the place where I can launch from, but I can only go up to 500 feet or 750 feet. But just learning how to make sense of, there's a lot of information on there, and pulling out the salient points for me and PPG.
Yeah, I bet the first time you looked at a sectional, it was probably pretty intimidating.
Yes, indeed. I was able to pick out the easy one, you know, military restricted areas.
Yeah, right, because you played in military restricted areas.
Yep, indeed.
You know, I'd say a lot of students that I've trained, some just snap to it.
Mm-hmm.
But even for me in the beginning, airspace was very daunting.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those subjects that it wasn't just you go learn it, you had to practice it.
Yes.
You know, figuring it out over and over was, you know, kind of the key to getting familiar. And now, I mean, you know, past being an instructor, I can look at a sectional, and like you said, I can determine, can I fly here?
Mm-hmm.
Is there TFRs? Is there NOTAMs I have to worry about?
Right.
And then past that, you know, go fly, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you actually get into how sectionals work, the FAA has them set up pretty simply.
Yes, it's a whole bunch of programming. It's if-then statements. The lines all mean something. So if that line is there, then you can do this. But if this line crosses over that line, then you cannot do that.
Right. So we go through ground school. You know, you're still kiting, and then motor kiting comes along. It's time.
Oh,
You
want to get into the story of how I broke a prop?
Well, not yet, but I think everybody at one point will break a prop. It's almost a rite of passage. I don't care if you have 3 hours or 300 hours, it's going to happen. But so we ended up going to King Cook America, and we originally started on one of my motors, a King Cook Amrook with a Corsair N80 on it. But then we go to King Cook America, and you saw your frame.
Yes.
And I will say, it seemed like when you saw it, you knew it because you were like, I want that.
Yeah, because there were options available. You can get this motor, this frame, this cage, that color. No, I want that one. That one, you built that one for me. I love that purple cage.
Yeah, so you got a purple frame with an Atom 80 on it,
Yeah.
Kango camera, Gen 2.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the, I can't remember, do you have the CNC swing arms or do you have the tubular?
Tubulars.
Tubulars?
Yeah.
So, and that was the motor that you did most of your motor kiting
Oh yeah.
and training on. So here I am on the field, we strap you into a wing,
Mm-hmm.
you got a motor on your back, and this is the first time you're gonna inflate with a motor. Tell me about it.
Well, this was no power, just motor kiting. And I was concerned that I was going to be able to generate some speed to be able to lift, go through inflation and get that wing up, because that's a little bit of weight for me. And I don't have long legs, so I can't really run
remember
fast.
5'3".
Yeah. So it was the first one. I remember it. I got it to partially inflate, but then it fell back behind, and you're yelling at me, "Run, run, run!" And I'm when it got it set down, I said, "My legs won't do that. Not with this stuff on my back." It took a while to get to the point where it was more of the finesse of, okay, I know how to kite this thing. Just because the motor's on my back, I still know how to kite it. I can still do this. I don't have to be a superstar running real fast. Wind conditions were nice because we did have some wind, and then it wasn't a problem. Bring it up and then you're just kiting it. You're kiting the wing. I had to move, but I didn't have to provide the forward speed to get the wing to inflate.
So you found that it was more skill-based
Yes.
than it was brawn.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one thing I have a hard time with students trying to get through their heads sometimes, that, you know, muscling it is not the key. It
No.
is finesse and skill, learning that finite control that allows you to do with a lot on your back, a lot in your hands.
Oh, getting that balance with that thing on your back. That's a big issue. You have to get accustomed to the weight and how it's moving around on you. But it's not overwhelming by any means.
Right. So since you mentioned it, we'll talk about the old pop bust. So this is the beginning. We're doing some truss thrust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the motor running on your back, and we're running back and forth in the field, and we're doing mock.
No
throttle
wing
control, no
Just-
wing.
just-
And so we've done a couple of runs.
Yep. We've done, I think they were about 30-yard runs, really. And throttling up to different speeds, and I was feeling comfortable with it, because that is such a nice thing. You start off running and then you get into the thrust, it's like, oh, this is helping. This is not so bad. And then, of course, coming to the end, you got to let off the throttle slowly. Well, did one run, turn around, come back, and we were going to go do a final run. It's still physical labor. It still gets you tired. But I throttled up and we're running, and then you say, okay, it's time to let off the throttle. And I did. I was letting off the throttle slowly. But I thought it had gone down much more than it had. So when I went to stand up or to ease out of trusting the thrust, that motor was still a little bit fast, and I just went poof down on my face, and the prop hit over the cage. Didn't really damage anything, just a little bit of my pride and ego.
Yeah, it did explode the prop.
Yep, it did. But it didn't, I wasn't hurt in any way. And I've had some interesting butt landings and things. Haven't really hurt myself in any way. So it can be dangerous, but if you pay attention to your instructor, it's going to be okay.
Now, let's go with that, paying attention to instructor. Now, I've been actually contacted here recently about people buying equipment they're wanting to self-train.
Yeah.
What
Bad
would you-
idea.
Bad idea. You tell me about that.
Well, for one, I never had the idea that I was going to get my own equipment and self-train. No, that just wasn't going to happen. That first orientation with you, I could see the complexity of the sport, and I knew nothing of the equipment and different brands and sizes and everything else. I just knew that was not going to happen. I'm going to go through instruction, and quite frankly, I put all of my trust into you to give me, from your perspective, what kind of equipment I should get, because I wanted to get my own equipment. I was in for the whole thing. It was going to happen, but I wasn't going to shop for myself, and I wasn't going to try and get used equipment to save a few bucks. I'm figuring, hey, I'm in it for a dime. I'm in it for $1. So you told me what I needed to get, and I said, okay, bam, make it happen. Send me an invoice, Leo. I'm trusting you're going to put me in the right equipment. And so far, I've been so very pleased with everything that I have purchased on this. And right now, I'm at about $14,700. But I bought a lot of extra stuff.
You have bought a lot of extra
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean, the other thing, you had all the bells and whistles in the beginning as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny how, you know, as we go along with any sport, anything like that, you know, we keep buying these little extra things that
Yeah.
enhance what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, the other day you had picked up a strobe so you could be comfortable and safe
Yeah.
and follow the FAR 103 flying a half hour after sunset.
Exactly.
And, you know, so you've done thrust, you've been kiting, you've done some motor kiting,
Mm-hmm.
and then I tell you it's go time. What was your thoughts? How were you feeling?
I was very confident because I had that feeling of trusting the thrust, knowing that when I pull that trigger, that thing is going to spin and it's going to push me.
Well, not only that, we had spent quite a few times in the simulator. So the mechanical simulator with the motor running,
Yep.
going through all the scenarios of, you know, takeoff, landing, getting into your seat, doing your safety check, turns, all that kind of stuff. So like I said, it's go time. So.
And with all that simulator training, and then I'd go home and I'd sit in a lawn chair, weather permitting, sit in a lawn chair drinking a beer, and I'd be sitting in the position as if I'm flying and going over this stuff and going through with the head the flight sequence of what was going to happen and the different calls you're going to make, and practicing with how I would do the throttle, because I'm a right-hand throttle, and man, that hand gets kind of full when you're first starting out. It seems like it's complex. Not anymore, but hey, at the start, it was something that I wanted to go over in my mind to get a good mental picture of what we were doing, but using the muscle memory for when we're actually kiting and stuff, and that helped with my confidence. So we're getting out there, we're ready for that flight, and it was going to be a motor taxi, but if it was good, it was going to be a flight. I knew that.
Right,
You were going
right.
to say, if it's good, I'm going to tell you power, 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 and I was going to go. I was going to fly. So I start to pull up. The inflation was good. Hit power. It's running. More power, and now I hit the throttle, and now I'm feeling the thrust. I'm feeling it giving me that assistance. And then you said full power, and I pulled that back to full power, and it's like, whoa, now I see what leaning back is all about, and I'm running along, and I didn't think I could run that fast, and then pretty soon, and I didn't even really pull any brake to get that lift. It just poof, sucked me up, and that first one I did get scooped a little bit, and I jumped into the seat too early. I didn't run into the sky, but yeah, the thing took me into the sky, and that was amazing. That first launch, it wasn't scary. It was just such a new environment for me that, man, I was just overwhelmed by all the stimulus I'm getting, but I wasn't scared. And the wing is climbing the way you said, the way everything was talked about, and I didn't have a problem with following your commands, and I knew we were in radio comms. I knew what you were going to say next, and when you said it, I was able to respond right away because I knew what you were going to say. You're very consistent, Leo.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. On top of that, too, something I do with all students, and I kind of want to hear your impression of this. So we get you up in the air. You've gone through your safety check. You've probably done a turn or two.
Mm-hmm.
You're cruising about 300 feet or so. We're kind of moving you around the field a little bit, and then we're going to bring you in for landing. And then I call out. I tell you to take a deep breath. I want you to look around and realize you're flying. Tell me about that moment.
I have a good mental image because I was heading south. The town of Norwich is on my right, looking down there, and I just take a deep breath and not so worried about the turn coming up next or anything. I did look around and I was like, wow, I really am flying, and I'm controlling this thing, and it's working. I like this.
Yeah, a lot of students, we go through so much technical stuff, and it's all technical getting you into the air, and you're waiting for my next command, that they get closed-minded with all that stuff happening. Mm-hmm. And then, I call out and tell them to take a deep breath and look around. And I think it's an epiphany moment for most students that, oh my gosh, I've gone through this, I did all this work, and now I'm actually in the air.
Yeah, and I'm going to survive this. This is going to work.
So
the flying was easy. The flying was fun. The flying is easy. Obviously, the launch and the landings are the more stressful periods. But I didn't have any doubts about the launch was going to work, because you were going to give me the heads up signal that it was good to go, and I was going to launch and it was going to happen. Landing, coming around, I wasn't really thinking too much ahead because I was just overwhelmed with the mechanics of launch and flying. But I knew that you were going to guide me through the landing. And when you're giving me the commands of lining up and, okay, I want you to go to idle and a little bit of left, okay, line up here, you're doing good, now you're going to, I want you to go shut off or get out of the seat, and now we're going to shut off the motor, and none of that was scary. And I think the only thing, my first landing wasn't very great. I mean, I ended up kind of a butt skid landing, but I think for me it was, the landing was perfect. I forgot to run. I just forgot to move my legs.
Yeah, because it's a lot of stimuli when you come in for that landing. So I call you in for the landing. We're coming in, and you can see the ground coming at you. What's your thoughts?
That exactly what you said. If you look straight at the ground, you're going to think you're going faster than you are. But I did not. I mean, I'm looking at the ground. It looked like it was coming up fast, and I was not going to be able to control this. But I knew that you were going to give me the calls for when I needed to apply pressure and slow down. I didn't have to make that choice. I knew you were going to do it. We were on comms. I knew what I was supposed to do. But if I had to do that all by myself, self-trained, that would have turned into an asshole over an apple cart type event. It would have been poor.
Yeah, great way to say it. Yeah. So, how many flights do you have now?
I'm at 24.
24.
24.
Nice. Actually, I didn't know it was that many. So, you started to do stuff like play with your trimmers.
Yep.
We've done some surge control in the air.
Yep.
You did an altitude the other day. You tried to get to 2,000.
Right, and since I don't have equipment that can tell me, I don't have an altimeter with me. I have a tracker that will tell me afterwards how far I went.
Right, Gaggle.
But it looked like 2,000 feet to me. I only made it to 1769.
Oh,
But it
gotcha.
looked like 2,000 feet to me. And that was a fun to get up that high. That was the highest I've ever been. but it was also, I knew that, okay, now I can go to idle and I can just kind of cruise back, do some gentle turns. I knew where the airfield was, had a visual on it, so that's not a problem. And I knew how to descend in a relaxed fashion. Now, that is when I was turning back to the west, coming down from altitude, and the sun was midway past the horizon. It was halfway set. And I was able to relax and say, I don't have to worry about flying. This flying stuff is, I can relax and enjoy this sunset. That's the first time I enjoyed a Kansas sunset from altitude. And that was, it made the mundane very interesting.
Nice, nice. So have you started to play with your phone in the air yet?
No. No. I'm only getting to the point where I'll let off the brakes and go to another control. It's like when you first learn to ride a bicycle, you white knuckling those handlebars. You know, give it a week and now you're riding, look, Mom, no hands.
Right,
So
right.
I've gotten to the point where, okay, I'll stow my brakes and I'll do passive cruising. And I'll play with the trimmers. I haven't touched my wingtip steering yet. I'll get to that eventually, but I have gotten to the point where I can sit with my hands in my lap and fly and do weight shift turns and,
Nice.
and relax with just enjoying. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So overall, through the whole process from, you know, coming out to the field to where you're at flying now, what would you say was the scariest part? What took you back the most?
What took me back the most is when I face planted and blew that prop up, because
Gotcha.
that made me feel like I couldn't control the equipment. But it was just a little mistake. It's part of the learning process. But that, coming back from that, one, I was disappointed that I did what you said would happen if I didn't follow what you were saying, and I didn't. I didn't do how you had instructed to let off that throttle slowly, but all the way.
All the way kind of helps.
Yeah, all the way it kind of helps, but it scared me. And it made me feel like, you know, maybe I can't handle this equipment. So that was the scariest part. But I think that after I got over the fact that, I mean, I don't know how many times you said, Mike, I'm not mad at you. We'll get it fixed. I'm not mad that you broke a prop. It's okay. But it took a while for me to go over it in my head that, yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah, I lived through it, but I learned from it. All right, well, the next time I got the motor on the back was my motor.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And, you know, something like that, you know, when we make mistakes, they're a hell of a learning, learning point. And I would say you advanced past that pretty quick. I never saw any real fear in you. I would say that I could see a little bit of embarrassment, but I don't think there was any time that I ever thought you were afraid of the equipment.
It's not really afraid, being too tentative to want to try again, you know, or should I do this again? And well, I got over that kind of quickly because I was having so much fun with the kiting and everything. I mean, just standing under the wing with the kiting harness and having complete control, and you're just standing there, minor adjustments, and it's flying over your head. That is enjoyable. I just liked the way that felt. Putting
I agree. I enjoy
components
that
together with the motor, it just took some time and confidence in myself.
Okay, so on a positive note, overall, from day one to your last flight, in 3 words, what would you say is the most positive about Paramotor for you?
Freedom, exhilaration, and appreciation. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, appreciation, one, for the community that I'm involved in.
We've got a great bunch.
It is, and it's fun to go flying, but when there's times when we're para waiting and I don't go flying, but other people can because their skills are more adept, I don't have a problem with that. I'll put on my ground crew support hat and run around the field to help them wherever I can. It's just fun to be around the people.
Now, hold on, let's talk about that. His ground crew support hat is this god-awful emoji thing that I think is absolutely ridiculous, but I've come to love it because of what it means for you.
Yep.
So, tell me about the hat.
Well, it's bright yellow, and it has little tassels coming down the side with little red balls on it so that you can actually tie it together under your chin to keep your ears warm. It's a funny hat that is the winking emoji.
Yes.
And I like it because it's bright yellow and, well, it's odd. I found it in a box of stuff that my kids had stored and they were going to throw it away, and I pulled that out. I said, oh no, I'll wear that, and I'll wear that in public. But it has become a symbol of when I'm wearing this out at the field, I am ground support. Anybody can ask me for assistance. I'm not doing anything that I can't stop doing and help and assist.
Nice. Yeah, you take that the groundsman pretty seriously. That's important to you, just like flying is.
Well, remember, I was always a support officer. I wasn't an operator. I was support.
Gotcha.
That was what I did in the Air Force. Always support, logistics support, maintenance support. That's part of my being. And ground crew members are people that come out and they watch other people fly. I like to see them get involved, but it's a dangerous environment, so they can't really get involved unless they've been trained. And the training can't be the paramotor training. You're doing paramotor training for pilots. The training is really familiarization. I'm happy to give everybody familiarization of what you can expect, what you can do, and what you should not do, and what you will not do.
Yeah, you were great with those kids, with Daniel's children, when we put Daniel in the simulator. You were fantastic with those kids and made them feel involved and part of the show.
Yeah, and kept them safe, and they listened. Hey, there's this, okay, he's not quite a very tall adult, but there's this adult and he's paying attention to us.
Yeah.
And we're watching Dad in the simulator.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. He's gonna end up being a good pilot. That's Daniel, by the way. We'll probably have him on the show here at some point. But so with everything that, another question, with everything that you've been through, with from training, watching others around you, when you started, it was kind of a scary time, for paramotor, because there was a lot of people having some pretty decent wrecks.
Yeah.
It was, if you had paid attention to social media and paramotor, you could see that there was some significant accidents happening. And again, they were always with older people, older heads that had been flying for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what, part of the key is that we, as we grow as pilots, we got to be careful not to become complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Routine can be bad if it's not handled correctly.
Yeah.
But there was a point where a lot of stuff was happening in the paramotor world. You're about to fly. You just began to fly. Overall, what would you say with the community, with learning, with your training, with being in the seat, in the air? What's the big takeaway for you?
Well, I did a lot of scouring of all the accidents and incidents databases that you can look at, and none of that scared me because I knew I was following USPPA instructor for how to operate, and as long as I pay attention to that training and I follow that training, I'm not going to have an issue with operation. Now the equipment that I have, that wing that I have, a Mac Paramotor Charger 2, that thing is so stable.
Plug there.
Leo had asked me to go up on a flight, and he wanted me to induce some roll oscillation so I can get practice in negating a roll oscillation. And you pull a brake down and let it up real hard. Well, I did that, and the wing would come down and then whoop, straight back up. It just did not oscillate, just whoop, straight back up. When I landed, you said, well, did you get any roll oscillation? I tried right and left, and every time I did it, it just went straight back up. It would not oscillate.
Yeah, the Charger 2 is a pretty stable wing.
So with the equipment, the way the equipment is designed and the safety ratings associated to your needs, man, I really don't have a fear of overflying my equipment's capability or my equipment not being safe. I got good motor, good wing, good training. Anything that happens is going to be a result of me as a pilot not paying attention to those around me who are saying these conditions aren't good, or me not recognizing these conditions aren't good, or me doing something that I just forget to do a brain fart.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not fearful of the flying. I'm not fearful of the landing. It's, will I do it as good as I can? Can I make it look good? That's what I want to do.
Well, and you know, you have a lot of fun.
Yeah, oh,
You
yeah.
know, the look on your face when you come down out of the air is just absolutely classic. You know, you've got that fabulous grin, and you're, you know, excited about what happened, and you're talkative. You want to tell us about what you went through and the little things you learned.
Or did you guys see that I did this? Because I know there was that one launch that I took off, powered up, and started running, and I'm feeling the lift, and I don't have my brakes in my hand. And I'm getting close to the end of, you know, my go, no-go, the end of the field and into the planted crops. But I grabbed up there, reached a hold of those, and I was throttling up good, and I grabbed them and pulled them down, and that's when I first realized that, oh, pull down to the, and then you do get lift, because it poof, popped me up. But it took that mistake to then ingrain that process for the launch into me, that, man, you pull down and give that little lift, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, a little pressure will pluck you up off the ground. So, you know, Paramotor is fantastic, and we're lucky enough here in Wichita, Kansas, to have just an awesome core group.
Mm-hmm.
The people around us, and we have one of the biggest paramotor events here in Wichita, Kansas. Well, not in Wichita, but in Fredonia, Kansas, called the Endless Foot Drag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing, you know, the community that we have there as well. You know, everybody's good to each other. You know, we don't have a lot of negative problems or anything. And you know, it's really enjoyable. It's one of the things that caught me on the sport is the support.
Mm-hmm.
That you get, whether it be online, whether it be you go somewhere in another city or whatnot and call out some people that are flying, go fly with them. You know, paramotor is one of those sports, like you said, it's, you can be as good as you want to be. So you can stay, you know, just cruising around, nothing big, or you can go off into some acrobatics and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. But I know the last time I was talking to you about that, I was saying I'm starting to go a little deeper into my corners, and I'm starting to play with this and play with that. But how do I make sure that I'm not going so far that I might induce a wing over, or getting too far beyond my skills? And you're very clear about that. So I know that I can stretch out limits a little bit and get more comfortable with it. But
it's an actual growth.
yes, it's progression. It's always a progression, incremental improvements. You don't want to go out and try something new, real drastic, because yeah, you can screw things up in a heartbeat. Now, with my wing, if I did something stupid like that, as long as I went to the hands up, power, reduced power, and just fly the aircraft, the wing is going to stabilize on me.
Right.
It's
right.
going to stabilize, but I don't want to put myself into that position. I want to gradually get used to the different geometries and the different feelings and you know, the G-forces, and while I'm enjoying it, the thing I like the best right now when I'm up in the air is flying a pattern and learning to fly a straight line.
Yeah.
And maintain an altitude. You know.
Yep. Because you're in a three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
You know, just because you can fly in a straight line doesn't mean you can hold your given altitude.
Yeah.
You know, and that throttle management is a big part of it. So we're starting to progress. We're pushing you towards your PPG-2.
Yes.
What do you expect to get out of that?
I've already been reviewing the PPG-2 syllabus. What I do expect to get out of it is a greater understanding of airspace requirements, and not necessarily so that I will understand it, but that I can, if I were to come to you and say, I think I could fly here and I show you this and this is why, that you would say, yep, you're correct. That's what I want to get to. Yep, you're correct. You have interpreted that correctly.
Yeah, you know, PPG-2 was a big step for me. I really was, you know, excited when I got to my 2.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to, you know, put in those landings and, you know, point a spot on the ground in my head and go, okay, I'm gonna put it down right there and stick it.
And I'm not there yet. I only talked about the academic portion of the PPG-2
Right.
syllabus.
Right.
Looking at the performance, I know I got a lot of work to do to get to that spot landing capability.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. It's going to take more flights. You know, I don't have that many. And I have a high percentage of butt landings in there. So I'm just refining that whole landing sequence. But I'll get to the point where, I can do a spot landing.
Yeah.
I can do 6 spot landings. I can do a power off from 300 foot and come down and hit that spot.
Yeah, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
And you know, behind that, that's kind of a safety idea. You know, you're flying. You know, we fly in a manner that if we have a motor out, that we're able to, you know, negotiate that and land in a safe area.
Yeah.
Well, that's what that spot landing's about. That's
Exactly.
literally the whole basis of it is, you know, you've lost your motor, you've got this much energy in the wing, you've got this much altitude,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to put it in this spot to be safe.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of getting used to the perspective. That's what it is.
Yep. Yep. Well, Mike, I'll tell you, I've had an absolute blast hanging out with you this afternoon. Again, a beautiful Sunday, Easter, 4/20, 2025.
Wait a minute. Beautiful Sunday. It's raining out there.
It
Leo.
is.
We
It
can't
is.
fly. It's not as beautiful as it could be.
That is true. That is true. But, I mean, we get to hang out together and talk about paramotors and PPG.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we've got a great community.
Indeed.
So, you know, to kind of wrap things up, I want you to kind of talk to the person that would be getting into this or considering PPG flight. What would you have to say for them?
My first question is, are you afraid of heights? And most people are going to say, yeah. I said, what about if you were in control at that height? Do you think you'd be afraid? Because I can tell you from my personal experience, jumping into the air with that wing, it was never about a fear of heights. And I've always had not a fear of heights, a fear of falling from those heights. That's my fear. But jumping into the air and flying around in that thing, no, never had that. So you want to learn something new, you want to gain a different perspective, you want to feel the freedom and exhilaration of flight, and not have to buy an airplane and a hangar. You can store all this stuff in your garage. I put all of this stuff in my Mini to transport it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's very
Explain the
space-
Mini, because that thing is very small.
Oh yes, Mini Cooper S, 2-door Mini Cooper S, and I can put my wing bag in the back with the seats down, carry my helmet, all my equipment, refreshments, everything in the back, and then I put a cargo carrier on a Class 1 hitch, so I can mount my motor in the cargo carrier and strap it down, and that way I don't have to break the motor down, break the cage down. I haul it as an all-up motor. Very easy to transport around. I get home, you unload, you stuff it into the garage. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It's very easy to move around and travel around and set up. It's not a hard sport to get into.
Gotcha.
And it's not like anything else you're going to do. I mean, my son Corbin, he likes to rock climb. Now I imagine that gives him a sense of exhilaration, holding on like a gecko with one hand on a rock. I don't want to do that, but just the idea of, hey, at 62 years old, I'm flying now, and I can do this, and I can keep doing this. It's not a scary thing.
And it's a long-term skill. I mean, this is something that you see yourself doing until
I can no longer run, which that's going to be a while. Yeah.
Then we'll just put your butt on a trike.
Yeah. It's going to be around, and you can grow old in this sport as long as you don't lose your humility. You've got to be humble with yourself and your capabilities. The minute you start carrying around a chip on your shoulder, and I can do this, and I'm going to do this for the camera, and then oh shit, things go bad. That's when you overstretched it.
Well, there's that old saying: there's old pilots and there's bold pilots.
Yes.
But there's no old bold pilots.
Exactly.
This is, I'd have to say the biggest danger in this sport is complacency.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And complacency is, and I guess feeling that you're indestructible because you've made it so far. You've accomplished this. You've accomplished that. Hey, I'm able to do a wing overs, and I can do spins and recover and everything like that. But that doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you still better be thinking. You still have to be in control, knowing your environment, knowing your wing, and take everything in a seriousness, because you are a pilot. Yeah, you're not flying a kite. You're a pilot.
Well,
you're not
gravity
holding
always
onto
works.
a balloon.
Right.
You are a pilot.
Yeah, and gravity always works.
Indeed, it's the law.
Definitely. Well, Mike, to wrap things up, like I was saying, what would be your one good sentence of advice to anybody getting into the sport?
Don't wait. Don't wait. If you think it could work, you will make it work. Don't wait.
Okay.
I could have been having this much fun 20 years ago when I first retired. Holy crap, I missed out on a lot.
Yeah, you'd be a hell of a pilot now after 20
Indeed.
years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, 20 years ago, this was a pretty beginning sport.
Yeah.
And equipment is nothing like it was then as it is today.
True.
I understand, most flights ended with motor out.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have such reliable equipment like the Viterazis and the Corsairs and,
Yeah.
that Pellinis that, you get to turn them off. They don't do it by themselves.
Yeah. Or you could run it out of gas.
Right?
Yeah, you could do that.
I've done that a few times. Well, Mike, I really, really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. Talking to you is an absolute blast, and I love seeing your progression. And you know, I've said this before, you're going to make a hell of a pilot. And we've talked about it, and I think you moving towards an instructor at some point would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
You have that mentality, you pay attention to detail, and you're super empathetic. So you kind of see what people are going through, and you kind of match that same tone with them, you know, especially when you're help flipping wings and, you know, setting people up for launch and, you know, that kind of thing. I think you do really, really, really well. And I'll tell you again, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me on Facebook and whatnot to, you know, to kind of tell me about your adventure and you know, your experiences and you know, your love for the sport. We appreciate that.
And it's going to continue. And if I continue excelling in progressions of ratings, then going to instructor gives me the capability to teach somebody else to do it. And I know you like it when you see somebody's first flight, the face after their first flight, it energizes you.
It feeds me.
Yeah.
Absolutely feeds me. Everybody knows when a pilot lands after their first flight, I am all over them like white on rice.
Yeah.
I am in their face. I am absorbing every bit of energy and excitement and enthusiasm that they have. You know, that for me is probably one of the biggest drivers. And I get that with the small wins too. You know, when somebody completes a good, you know, reverse for the first time, or does a good motor kiting session, or, you know, gets out of the simulator for the first time, like, holy crap, that just happened. I absolutely love.
Or seeing somebody who has been struggling, with not pulling the wing or not providing the correct input, and then finally pulling it up and actually doing the correct input and straightening that thing up, and it's like, yeah, and I hear you back in the background, yeah, you did it.
You know, I love to see people snap. You know, this is one of those that it's the stuff that you start with. It's not intuitive.
No.
You think you should move left when you actually should be moving right. You think you should pull when you should actually put your hands up and give less input. And seeing somebody pop or snap or their brain break, and then all of a sudden they get it. You know, the big picture shows up. It's like, oh.
Yeah, that aha moment.
Yeah.
Aha!
yeah. That's a lot of fun to see. So, Mike, we're gonna do some sessions here in the future. You know, we'll check in with you here in a little while and see how you're progressing and whatnot. I cannot thank you enough for coming and hanging out with us today on Wichita Paramotor Coast to Coast.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
This is episode number 1.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this probably twice a week. And we're going to talk to local pilots and people across the country.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to have a lot of fun and see if we can help, you know, not only provide a little entertainment, but help those that are getting into the sport and whatnot. You know, give them a little education and give them perspective from how other people, you know, have experienced it and their takeaways. So, Mike, again, I thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us again on Wichita Paramotor Coast to Coast. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Everybody enjoy. Check us out on Facebook. And this is it. Episode number 1 is a wrap.